Good afternoon. We're in the week of Passover. In 5 days we will be sitting at our Seder tables with our families, celebrating the exodus from Egypt. But as we say in the Haggadah, and we know, it says in every generation we have to feel as if we left Egypt then. And the rabbis ask, and Chassidus expresses, why do we have to feel like we left Egypt in every generation? And the Rebbe tells us that the word Mitzrayim, Egypt, means limitations and boundaries and things that hold us back from being the best human being we could be. And every single one of us has these things that restrain us from becoming the best person we could be. And when we sit at the Seder table, it's a time to focus and to think about who we are and how we could become the best we could be. So in that spirit, I want to tell you a thought on Passover. We all know the famous story when Moses meets God at the burning bush, and God tells him, go to Egypt and tell the Jewish people, tell Pharaoh to let my people go. The rallying cry that has become a cry ever since. But the question is like this: when God tells Moses to tell Pharaoh to let my people go, God says to come to the promised land, to go to Israel. Yet only a little bit later, God tells Moses, and Moses tells God, Moses tells Pharaoh, I want to go for 3 days to serve God in the desert, because Egypt was full of promiscuity and idol worshipping, so we can't serve God in Egypt. We want to go out. And the question is, why did Moses have to lie? Why couldn't he tell Pharaoh the truth? We want to leave Egypt because God's taking us out. He's going to whip you into submission, and he's going to take us out and send us to the promised land. We're going to go to Sinai, we're going to get the Torah, and then we're going to go celebrate at the promised land. Why does he have to tell him 3 days? In fact, when Pharaoh finally comes running in the middle of the night to tell the Jews to get out by the death of the firstborn, only 3 days later, Pharaoh's upset and he comes chasing the Jews, and he meets them at the ocean where he ends up being drowned. Why did Pharaoh run there? Because Pharaoh was questioning. He didn't trust Moses anymore, because you said 3 days and now you're leaving. Why couldn't Moses just tell him the truth? Even more so, the Jews left Egypt. Why do we eat matzah? Because the Jews rushed out of Egypt. They didn't have time for the bread to rise. Maimonides begins his Haggadah saying, we rushed out of Egypt. If the Jews would have said the truth to Pharaoh, we're going and we're never coming back, then the Jewish people would have not had to rush. Pharaoh would have known. He would have had no choice because he wanted them out. He was scared of the first death. Why did Moses have to lie? In fact, we all know that the Torah tells us, midvar sheker tirchak, distance yourself from lies. The only time the word tirchak, to distance yourself from it, is mentioned in the Torah is by lies. So why would Moses say this big lie? The Alter Rebbe, in his magnum opus Netanya, tells us something so profound and deep. And he says that really Moses was speaking to the Jewish people, not the Pharaoh. You see, a slave's mind and mentality is one of fear. And he doesn't want to leave. He's scared of his own rationale. He says, you know what? He's scared of his own mind. He says, it's never going to happen. I'm never going to be able to leave Egypt unless God opens the heavens and makes the greatest miracle. And what Moses was telling the Jewish people is, listen, don't be scared of that inner voice, of that Pharaoh within you that's telling you you'll never leave. Go for 3 days. Try and drop. Run away from yourself, from your entrapment, from your enslavement, even for 3 days, to meet God. Imagine. The Alter Rebbe says, within your own heart there's a Pharaoh and there's a Moses. There's the Moses that says, get up in the morning, go to shul, wrap your tefillin, be kind to your neighbor, keep Shabbos. And there's the Pharaoh that says, no, don't do it. And what we have to do is say, you know what? I'll just go for 30 minutes. I'm not going to go for 2 hours to shul. People always say, Rabbi, why do we have this term called JFK, just for Kiddush. It's people who come late and they come right before Kiddush and say, Rabbi, why do you let them come? Why don't you tell them to come earlier? And you know what the answer is? Because the moment you come a little bit and you celebrate Shabbos and you run away from your Pharaoh, you'll end up going for longer. What the Alter Rebbe is saying is that we have to realize that it's never going to be without friction when we want to leave Egypt. It's always going to come with challenge. It's never going to be utopia. It's never going to be just perfect, because there's always going to be the Pharaoh that doesn't want to let you go. So the Alter Rebbe says, take that effort, take that energy. Say, yes, I'm just going to go for 3 days. I'm just going to do a kind deed once. I'm just going to avoid speaking gossip for an hour. I'm just going to study Torah for 15 minutes. Because when you leave Egypt, even for 3 days, when you break away from the shackles of enslavement, from the mindset of I am a slave, and from the Pharaoh that doesn't want to let us do what we are, eventually you reach your goal and you're able to truly be free and out of exile. There was a rabbi, Rabbi Chaim Gutnick. He lived in Australia. He was an orator par excellence. He spoke so beautifully. And he would give these beautiful sermons in shul. And one time, he was visiting America, and he came to see the Rebbe, or he wrote a note to the Rebbe, and he said he was down. He said, listen, I give these inspiring, amazing talks, but then people just go back to their lives. It doesn't change them. It doesn't make them better. It doesn't inspire them to do more. What should I do? He felt despondent about it. And the Rebbe told him something that the Rebbe always told us, to all of us, that you know what you need to do when you finish your sermon? You need to have a Musar Haskel. Give them a life-living lesson, something they can do practical, to take those inspiring words and articulate it into their life, into their day-to-day being. So fine. The next Shabbos, he was back in Australia, and he gave a speech. And his speech was all about Shabbos and the beauty of being closer to God. And when he finished, he said, you know what? There was a lot of people in the synagogue. Many of them were not observant, were not religious. And he said, you know, if you want to be close, I'll give you one good idea. Don't smoke on Shabbos. Guess there were, back then, a lot of people smoked. Now it's probably much less. He said, don't smoke on Shabbos. The next few weeks, he sees this new elderly man who's coming to shul, who wasn't involved in Judaism at all. And he says, oh, wow, it's so nice to see you. But could I ask you, what made you come to shul? And he said, I'll tell you the truth. I heard your sermon that week, and the next Shabbos, I went to work. I'm not observant, but when I was by work, the first thing I told my workers, go get me a pack of cigarettes. And then I said, 1 second, didn't the rabbi ask just not to smoke? So I said, I'm not going to smoke today. A couple of hours passed, and my lips were hurting me. It was bothering me. I was missing a cigarette. And then I said to myself, 1 second, I'm not smoking because it's Shabbos. So don't you think I should be in shul? So I said, let me go to shul. And then I went once, and again, and again. The message of Moses was such a powerful one. Leave Egypt for 3 days. Moses wasn't telling us to get rid of Pharaoh and ourselves totally. Moses wasn't expecting us in 1 day to leave all our mindsets that imprison us, that enslave us, all the things that hold us back from being the best human being, the kindest, the most caring, the most spiritual person we can be. Moshe said, run away for 3 days. Because once you run away, you'll push it longer. And next time it'll be 4 days. And you'll become a better human being. God bless us, and may we all leave the shackles that imprison us and become the best human beings we could. And may God bless us with a kosher and happy Passover. See you back tomorrow.